When we get time for open conversation, we ask that you raise your hand and unmute your mic when I say your name. If somehow you're not able to attract my attention, please let us know via the chat and we'll certainly come to you. We will be recording the session because we want to put it on our website and our Facebook page. And as I said, we do want to refer to the content in our work. And so if this causes you any problem, please let Johanna know via the chat. And of course, if you don't want to be seen, if you want it, you could click on your stop video icon down on the left-hand side and just listen in for a while. But we do love to see you. Now, just to give you an idea of how we're going to run the session today, we'll talk about our flow. We'll start with a song as usual. Then we'll go to a brief check-in, and I'll explain that a bit later. After that, Janet will actually set the scene for us briefly before we consider the 3 questions which we sent out to you in the email recently. Now, if you haven't got the questions in front of you, don't worry, because I will read them out again. And then we'll have a conversation for about 10 minutes on each of those questions. Then we'll bring the whole thing together a little bit, just picking up the key themes and close. So that's the idea of how we'll run today. So let's begin with a song. We love to bring the arts into our work, and we love to give you the opportunity to just sit back for a moment, take a breath before we begin the conversation. And I'll now ask Janet, in her capacity as a Chorus of Women singer, to introduce our musical offering for today, which is Ubuntu. Thanks, Janet.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you all again on this Zoom conversation. So today our song has a bit of an introduction. We've chosen this very much to tie in with the conversation today. And as we came online, you heard a little part of a song which is called Ubuntu, which was actually written by our music director. And it's a great favourite of a chorus of women. Ubuntu is an African concept, which means that we're deeply interconnected. We get our humanity through and because of each other. This principle was one of the guiding principles of Nelson Mandela's Prime Ministership of South Africa. Johanna attended a peace conference in Europe in 2004, I think it was, and heard Desmond Tutu speak about Ubuntu. She wrote the meaning of this philosophy into a song with the words, "I am who I am because of you. We are who we are because of each other." From the moment that I first heard this in 2006, this idea resonated very, very deeply with me. It's easy to feel that we don't know anyone who votes for the other side of politics, for instance. It's as if we live in separate realities, worlds that might appear to be the same, but where we have different life experiences and interact with different people, and maybe have different priorities for what we want out of our lives. Instead of getting angry or vilifying people who have different views to us, Ubuntu reminds us to look for how our different positions are both reflections of one reality and truth. Listening to each other's stories can reveal that we have much more in common than we think. In recent years, Desmond Tutu has expanded this lovely concept of Ubuntu to eco-Ubuntu, recognising our interdependence with the whole of the living earth. Human issues such as peace, refugees, poverty alleviation, indigenous land rights, and so on are all interdependent. Peace on earth and peace with the earth are two sides of the same coin. In the chorus, we like to sing this song in a setting where we can encourage the audience to sing, as it's an affirmation of our shared humanity. To give you a sense of this, we're actually going to play a video that we made at an event in 2016 called Mission Climate. At this event, we interwove personal and scientist reflections on climate change with musical and visual responses. to share an emotional journey together between the presenters and the audience. As you're all on mute, once you get the hang of it, you're welcome to sing along. This is a song that vibrates deeply inside our being because of the beautiful meaning of the words. So I'll hand over to Johanna to put it on for a moment.
Of women. Very lovely. Okay, now it would be lovely now if we can get a sense of who is in the room. Some people call this a lightning check-in because we've got about 20 people and we hope to hear from everyone who wants to speak in the next 5 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to say your name and in one sentence something you long to see happening in a post-COVID environment. I'll just give you a little bit to think about that. And I might start. I'm Lyn, as you know, and something I long for is that we would embrace the donut economy, which puts in the centre care for people and care for the earth. If you'd like to speak next, just unmute yourself and raise your hand. Barbara, unmute. Unmute in the left-hand corner. Janet, I think Barbara can't unmute herself. Could you unmute her, please? Little technical hitch here.
Yeah, it's okay now. Sorry, my neighbour came to the door just as talking.
Okay.
She's had a minor accident and had a big black eye, so I couldn't just say what was there. So what were you asking us to do?
It's in one sentence, your name and something you long for to see happening in a post-COVID environment.
Well, Barbara Dwyer, and what apart from everything improving afterwards, I would really like to see complete change in their economic management, so that includes all aspects of how the economy runs, and of course particularly how we deal with the whole business of fossil fuels.
Thanks. Okay.
Lyn, it would be lovely if people could say where they are.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'm from Canberra.
Yeah, Barbara Bakey.
There I am. Yeah, Barbara Bakey from just outside Canberra in New South Wales. And I guess the things I'd really like to see is much more climate balance, but also to gender lens and a climate lens on every government policy, whether that is federal or state, but every policy is examined through that sort of perspective.
Thanks. Okay. Just remember it's a lightning check-in, so try and be brief. Who'd like to go next? Kirsten and then Beryl.
My name is Kirsten. I'm from the ACT. I would like to see I would like to see the government doing the right thing. And by that, I mean things like, the economic changes some people have, or the economic approaches some people have mentioned. Also things like setting up an anti-corruption commission, respecting gender balance. Sorry, I don't have them on the tip of my tongue, but I think that you know what I mean.
Yes,
Thank you.
Beryl?
Unmute. I'm Beryl from Brisbane, and I just, in just a very brief word, just say I hope we keep honing our skills on listening. I think this is something that we really need to keep practicing and upgrading very much. That's, over the whole range of things. We need to learn to listen more.
Okay. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves? Kylie?
Hi guys, Kylie, I'm in Singleton in the Hunter Valley. I guess I'd like to see a better appreciation of the way issues integrate and see less of a putting things into silos and managing them in a more holistic approach.
Yeah, great, thank you. Susan? So unmute yourself, Susan. Can you press your unmute button?
Did.
Down in the, yeah, great.
Yeah, I pressed it before and nothing happened. Yeah, I'm living in Diamond Beach. We're on acreage in an area that got burnt in the last fires. And I would like to see, I long for government funding of renewable energy industry. They seem to value the jobs of people in the fossil fuel industries very highly. But there are so many jobs which can be created in the renewable energy industries, especially for young people who are interested in that kind of thing. So that's what I would like to see.
Thanks, Susan. Anyone else like to introduce themselves? Chris, can you unmute yourself, please? Unmute. Having a bit of...
Great, thank you. No, I just needed your permission to do it. So, hi. So I'm Chris. I'm in Brisbane. Gosh, so many of the things that have been said before, but I think one that comes up very strong with me, is that encompasses quite a lot of that, is for the world to be moving towards a feminist peace, and for that to be really showing up. And Aaron Darty would always, comment about, like there's a new world, and I can hear her breathing. Is the space that I'd like to see.
Right, thanks. Anyone else? Honey, unmute yourself, please. Great.
Hello, I'm Honey. I'm in Canberra, and there are so many great issues, and that I think the emotional implementation of women are so deeply needed at all fronts. But there are so many fronts. I've selected Indigenous engagement, and I've got a deep despair and passion about the extincting species. So animals and First Peoples, and hopefully eventually the involvement of Indigenous women in our movement of women towards a position of influence in our society.
Thanks, Honey. Barbara Nettlebeck.
Can't unmute myself. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, just not quite, Barbara, so perhaps speak up a little bit.
Okay. I really liked the bipartisan, non-bipartisan conversations that we had early on in COVID-19. I'm from Bendigo, by the way, in Victoria. And I'd like sustainability to be the consideration in all decisions that are made.
Okay. All right. Before we close off the check-in, is there anyone else who would really love to introduce themselves? Meg, unmute yourself. That's great.
Very simple thing. I'd love to see, I'm from Canberra, with the Chorus of Women, some softening of hearts and some evidence of that, and hope that we can play a little part in that.
Okay. And Susan, this might be our last one. If you haven't had a chance now, please, and you'd like to introduce yourself, please use the chat and we'll go up that way. But we'll finish off with Susan. Just unmute yourself, Sue. Great.
I wasn't allowed to. I'd just like to see the National Cabinet keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thanks for that, everyone. And so sorry that we couldn't hear absolutely everyone at this stage, but we do need to move on. And I'm just going to ask Janet to very briefly set the scene before we go to our first question. Janet, we're running a little bit behind, so if you could be quite brief, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, well, hello again, everyone. And a big thank you to those of you who are returning after coming to our previous events, but also a really good welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. It's lovely to have you. So as most of you know, we've been busily organising a structure here for our Women's Climate Congress since January and February, when we had our first meetings. And we've done a lot of work. We've now got a website. If you haven't been to have a look at our website, go and have a good look around there, because we've got a lot of information up there now about who we are and our plans for how to develop a network of women around the country. In particular, we now have some resources up there about how you could start up conversations like this in your own local communities and the sorts of things that you might be wanting to talk to. We're particularly wanting to develop a network where we can develop relationships with our local elected representatives, and that might be initially at the federal level, but it also very importantly at the state level as well, in order to have conversations to say what we expect, all of those things that we've just been talking about what what we want to see after COVID, to have those conversations with our elected representatives so that they know that that's what we're thinking about. And in particular, and for my wish always, about how any policies that are going to be enacted are going to be thinking about the future of our younger generations, because that's one of the primary motivations that have brought us here, to be concerned for the future, that we are going to have climate balance, and that is going to create a safe future for our children. And we've been busily building our memberships. So we have on our Facebook group, we have about 325 women now from all around the country, and we also have another mailing list. And some of you have also joined up on our website, which is really what we would like to encourage you to do. So that's our sort of more official membership list, if you like. But we've also been busy reaching out to other organisations, and we'll maybe hear a bit more about that later. And we've also been doing some advocacy work. And one of the things that we've contacted a number of politicians. We sent out letters to all of the members of the National Cabinet to say we thought that should continue, and that we want a collaborative approach. We like the collaborative approach, and that should continue and sort of be extended to engage, to be more transparent, to include the community as well in these conversations. So we also responded to the National COVID Coordination Commission, which is the NCCC, which was actually formed in March, and we were a bit dismayed that it had a very poor gender balance, in that it has 6 men and 2 women on its executive, but then there are 2 other men who are department secretaries who are part of that process. So we sort of reached out, we actually sent a letter to all of the women in the coalition government to say we were not, you know, we were a bit concerned about this gender balance, and maybe they should speak to their party room about getting it fixed. But we also contacted members of the commission themselves, including the 2 women members and the chair. And to our surprise, we received a letter to say we've got a meeting with Mr. Neville Power, who's the chair of the NCCC, and that meeting is going to be on Thursday, as Lyn said earlier. Now, I was going to tell you a little bit more here about what we were thinking about that meeting, but maybe I won't do that just for the moment. Lyn, is that okay?
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of come, we'll weave that in as we go along. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janet. Okay, we're going to come to question 1 now. And just to put you a little bit in the picture, the NCC has 2 key roles: to help minimise and mitigate the impact of COVID on jobs and businesses, and to facilitate the fastest possible recovery of lives and livelihoods. And recently, Christine Figueres, who was the public face of the Paris Agreement, she was a UN executive, said that how we implement the recovery will determine how we respond to climate change. Because she was saying if we implement a recovery that is based on fossil fuels, we'll set ourselves back on the climate change agenda by a long way. If we go in a different direction, we can actually progress on climate change as well. So our question to you today is, what new opportunities for achieving climate balance are arising out of the pandemic? And what messages would you like the WCC to convey to the NCCC on 25 June? And again, this is an open conversation. We'll talk for just under 10 minutes. And so if you would like to speak, just raise your hand and unmute yourself, and we'll try and spread the conversation around as much as we can. But also, again, if you don't get a chance to say what you want to say, please put it into the chat, because we do want to capture everyone's ideas. So what new opportunities are arising for climate balance out of the pandemic, and what messages should we give to the NCC? Okay, we might go to Kylie first.
Yeah, hi guys. So I've just quickly popped a web link up into the chat, the Hunter Renewal Project. The area where I live, Hunter Valley, of course, is very dependent on fossil fuel coal mining as part of its economy. And the Hunter Renewal Project are a group looking at trying to transition from that coal economy to a more renewable energy and alternative business economy. It's a challenge because both at state and federal level, our representatives are very enmeshed with the coal industry. So it would be good to see a push towards alternative businesses and alternative economies that can be created on the back of existing jobs and existing skills that are already available within communities.
Thanks, Kylie. Who would like to go next? Is that Honey? Can we unmute Honey?
Just an observation, really, but it's been a delightful and for me a surprise to see the amount of action that's taking place in a sort of heart movement out in the streets, Black Lives Matter, this kind of thing, that there is a mood, particularly amongst young, but also I think a lot of older faces there, and I wonder eventually whether we could expand informal connections with, and I was thinking particularly the young people with regard to climate, and of course I've got a particular concern of Indigenous peoples, but it brings us back to being, we are parents, aunties, cousins, grandparents, daughters, and this kind of forward alliance with the obvious expression of emotion and passion that's coming up in the community after 3 or 4 months of lockdown. Some lovely things happening in people's hearts. That's all.
Thank you, Honey. Anyone else like to comment on this one? What? Yeah, Susan. Can we unmute Susan?
Okay, I'm living in regional rural New South Wales, and there's enormous shock here with the fires and the drought situation that we've endured in the last 12 months. It's been a lot of rain since then, so you're not seeing it, but you are seeing the devastation that was left behind. And I think it creates an opportunity for people to be receptive to ideas about how damaging climate change is starting to be. And COVID has thrown up, opportunities for new thinking, and I think it's good to capitalise on that. It's a really good time, I think, for groups like ours to have a voice, because there are a lot of people, especially out in the rural regional areas, who are thinking about this stuff for the first time. We are living in National Party heartland here, and it's, as a Greens and Labor supporter, it's frustrating the lack of awareness that people have and the lack of willingness to learn. But these two events, as horrible as they've been, the fires and COVID, have brought people up short, I think. And so it is an opportunity for voices to be heard. And I think we need to express our voices strongly, and messages to the National Climate Commission about the unemployment and the shock and unawareness in rural and regional Australia, where it's an opportunity for that to be addressed, and it's an opportunity for the government to take the lead in this. If the government were to be expressing more of an interest in renewable energy technologies and renewable industries, and if the government were to be funding those industries, it would provide the sort of employment in rural and regional areas that currently they can't see coming out of anywhere except exploitation of the land and extractive industries.
Thank you, Susan. I'd else like to contribute something here. Barbara O'Dwyer.
Yeah, can I, I said more or less that when I had my introductory statement, but I'd just like to really support what Susan's saying there. The other night I saw something with, the government's just obsessed with understandably getting the economy back on keel. There was that statement from Michaelia Cash the other night saying the answer to every question we're asked is, does it create jobs? And yes, that's a fair enough answer, or fair enough question, but it's jobs in the right areas. And if, as Susan said, if they're so obsessed with the fossil fuel industry, which in fact actually has very few jobs involved. Mining doesn't have that many jobs. Coal doesn't have that many jobs. There's the sorts of jobs that should be being created are those ones that we would support, that actually provide jobs in the green and alternate energy industries, which would create a lot more jobs than the fossil fuel industry creates. So if we can just get that over to the government and have them really properly investigate what the options for really creating jobs are in safe and sustainable ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else like to comment on this particular one about the opportunities arising at the present moment and messages for the NCCC?
I'm Jane Carter. I'm here in the ACT, and I'm also involved with Beyond Zero Emissions, which Kylie referred to the Hunter Project, which Beyond Zero Emissions is also working in that space. And you may not be aware, but it might be something that you could bring up with the NCC, that they have a 1 million jobs plan for the post-COVID environment. So that's going to be announced on the 29th of June, but they have got some information about it on their website. So that's Beyond Zero Emissions, and it's a think tank based in Melbourne, but they are working on a plan to create 1 million jobs, and they have sort of outlined in general where those jobs are going to come from, but in the renewable energy sector, essentially, to drive down our global emissions. So it might be worth giving them a plug because that's what they're working in at the moment, and they're a very small organisation, but they tend to be achieving good things.
Fabulous, thanks. Barbara Bakey. Can we unmute Barbara?
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think this is a great opportunity. There was a report that came out just very recently about the benefits of women's leadership, and I think that's something we could sort of highlight with them as the lack of representation of women on the committee. The other thing is too that there was a report, and I think it was Sydney Morning Herald just recently, about you know, it's 30 years since we started talking about the importance of climate change, and nothing's really happened, and we expect it to be much further down the track. And so I think, you know, it's really critical that we do focus on the climate now, so the next 30 years we actually get somewhere. I think with COVID-19, we have demonstrated, the government has demonstrated that they can have a bipartisan approach. And I think the difference with COVID, it was in your face, people are dying, whereas climate is a slow frog boil, and it will get up there and it will be in everybody's faces, like it was with the bushfires this year. And I think that, you know, we need that bipartisan approach, and that's something I think the council could really recommend, that, you know, moving towards the renewables, that we have to have a bipartisan approach to achieve it, and it is a critical problem. Thank you. Thanks.
Janet?
I'll just say a brief thing, because it might set the scene a little bit for the other questions, is that sort of in my discussion paper right at the beginning of WCC, I talked about mediation, a way of bringing people together around issues. And the way in which the NCCC is working is that it's a typical inquiry. We'll be taking submissions from different groups, and each group will come in individually to speak to them, and we will be going in, and they'll probably tick the box to say yes, spoken to women, and they've had environment groups go in, and they'll have business people and so on, and they'll probably make recommendations. And the sad thing is, and this is a very standard procedure in government, is that probably no one will be happy with what they say, because no one's had a chance to speak to all the players. And what we want to encourage, which is sort of in line with our vision of more collaboration, is a process that, you know, can we design a process that sort of brings people together in a way that all of those groups that are at the moment going in separately can come together in a more round table way. And as a whole community, we can work through these issues and come up with recommendations that are a win-win, because people have bought into them and have been part of the discussion. So we sort of want to seed that idea. I think that's in line with our vision.
Okay. So there's a number of practical suggestions that have come out, and a number that have also talked about the new kind of emotional and psychological atmosphere that we have, which is much more about collaboration. And so the two things together, I guess, give us a very powerful platform for actually making change, which wasn't available to us before COVID. So again, we might move on at this point. And I think, in fact, as I'm thinking about our questions, they're going to blend in together a bit, so that if you have a burning issue that came up here, it probably will come up later. And we're running a little bit short on time, so I was going to suggest that we actually combine the next two questions, which are about collaboration and also engaging people that you're involved with. So the questions are, what collaborations could deepen our understanding of the issues associated with achieving climate balance and strengthen our reach and influence? So that's about who should we be collaborating with. And I think already there have been some suggestions. And we'd also like to think of unlikely alliances as well. And the other question was, what approaches might engage people in your local community? So I think if we could sort of look at those two issues together and just have a general conversation about that now for the next 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll close after that. Bearing in mind that you can always email us or contact us after the event if there's something that has been missed. So shall we move on now and talk about what collaborations would strengthen us and what might engage the communities that you're involved with? So it's over to you now. Honey, did you want to speak to this one? Do you want to start off? About collaboration?
Okay, thank you. I think this is a big, good one. And having said that, I haven't the first clue how to go out and engage with 967 passionate climate kids, but there are ways. However, the one arena in which I may be able to help or engage the Women's Congress interest is that I am presently involved in, we're holding a Zoom meeting for the very first time. I think it will be a unique and very interesting event this Sunday, and working with Janet and with some others who are involved, and also Kevin Buzzicott, Arabana elder from Lake Eyre, who's been a passionate peace activist pretty well all of his 75 odd years. A call out has gone across the country, mediated with Janet and I, to get elders from all across the country. We are Zooming this Sunday. This will be, I hope not too many hiccups. People are travelling to get to computers. We will have anything from 15 to 30 people, I think, there. And just to relay to our group here, the Indigenous peoples of this country, and as I read it from contacts with elders there, they are in absolute despair at the devastations to country, the devastations to climate. Their whole ethos is with regard to conserving beautifully what they have received themselves, pass this beautiful earth on to their children. This is the deepest meaning of life. Custodianship for them is exactly that. It's the primal duty of care. It's the reason we are on earth, is to look after the old girl. Now, there'll be men and women at this meeting, and most of us don't even know each other, but we know of each other. We're coming together.
Maybe not too much detail, honey. Not too much detail.
Okay.
Thank you, Janet.
I'll be meeting with Indigenous women at this time, and I hope that eventually we will be able to join with them in leadership, because they have got a deep and passionate, very angry, very distressed heart for this whole matter that's brought us together today.
Thank you, Honey, and we look forward to hearing more about that as it goes along. Susan Glenhue. Can we unmute Susan?
Yep, I'm unmuting. Okay, on the principle of think global, act local, I just thought you might like to hear about what David and I are trying to do just in our own lives. We support, we're in the wilderness out here, we support Labor and Green political candidates where we can. There are no Green candidates, so we support Labor candidates. And there's 3 levels of government, and the only level that we have any success in getting action in is the local government level. We have managed to get two Labor candidates elected to the local government, and one of them is part of Lyn, the Labor Environmental Action Network. So we're quite pleased about her work there. So collaborations that we can do locally politically are limited. Of course, you can do a lot of speaking to the converted, but where you need to be speaking is to the unconverted. And so we are, one of the ways we try to do that, we're on 2 acres here, and we've created a permaculture environment, which we boringly rabbit on about to anybody who will listen. Anybody who comes across our path, we take the opportunity to go on about what we're trying to do and how that links to climate change. We also have our house and garden up on Sustainable House Day as a way of reaching out to the local community and putting a bit of information out there and giving people some different ideas to the way that they are inclined to do things in an unthinking way around here. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do in our own local.
Thanks, Susan, and maybe we can help you too. Perhaps we can link up a bit later and talk to you about how we might be able to support you. Okay, Kirsten, are you wanting to speak or just clap? Just clap. Okay. Barbara Bakey.
I'd just like to quickly outline some of the things we've done already, but I think, and then sort of hear from other people. We've made connection with Trish Bergman, who's the co-chair of the 50-50 by 2030, and she was very interested in our movement and what we were doing, and is really keen to connect and is quite keen to come and participate and to be on one of our webinars. We've also got a meeting tomorrow with Equality Rights Alliance, which is one of the alliances that are funded by the government. We have met with Bonnie Miller, who's a former president of Disabilities Australia. She's a young woman, and we're hoping she was going to be on today, but I guess she got caught up and maybe will be on tonight. But she's also very keen to be involved and to support us. Robin Nolan, we've met with her, which she's a current president of the National Council of Women of Australia. We've also we'll be doing, or Janet will be doing a audio recording with Barbie Robinson, who has is from Working with Light and has a radio station here in the ACT. We'll also be connecting with the Rural Women Coalition, and so I just thought it was useful to outline some of the things we had, and also 1 Million Australia, we've also connected with them. So we are really sort of getting out there and connecting, but it'd be really useful to hear other organisations, which has been a few mentioned this morning, that would be useful to connect with. Thank you.
Thanks. I was wondering also, Kylie, I see that you've put some information in the chat, whether you would like to speak to that.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, guys. Yes, so look, I've graduated from Newcastle Uni in a Master of Disaster Resilience and Sustainable Development. We've got a cohort of students from around the world who are either participating or have graduated from this particular qualification, and have just sort of somehow come together. We've created a group to provide assistance to organisations or companies that are trying to streamline their businesses or economies during and post-COVID. We're only very much in our infancy getting off the ground. We just recently did some work with a Filipino ecotourism resort, but it's also a research station over in the Philippines, just to try and find ways for them to tide themselves over during COVID, to remain financially viable to continue operating again post-COVID, and also to sort of brainstorm ideas to how they can maybe do things differently in a post-COVID environment. So we've got students in there from around the world. We've got about 12 different languages that we can tap into. And if that would be a useful resource, I'd be more than happy to try and assist and mediate them.
Okay, thank you very much, Kylie. Okay. Annie and Janet? Janet, are you wanting to speak, Janet?
I was just going to sort of follow on from what Barbara Bakey was just saying, and another strong connection that we've made is to the Women in Farming movement through a wonderful person called Val Lang, who's been very involved in that movement. In fact, we've got a couple of quite strong connections into rural women's groups, but we just need a little bit more capacity building in our team to sort of be able to follow all of these things up. So yeah, we do have some strong, really good, strong possible links in to a number of groups.
Yeah. One of our ambitions is to have members in every electorate in Australia, and we're certainly not there yet. But one of the things we were interested in too is how we can actually support people who might want to set up a local group like this. So I just might throw that into the agenda in case anyone would be interested in that. I know that I think we have Barbara from Bendigo who's been talking a little bit around this issue, but if there are others as well who would like to explore that with us, that would be great. Because I think if we can get people right across Australia, then we've got a chance to really tap into all that's happening and try and each work together to strengthen the other.
Yeah, and I could just add that, of course, we are not party political, even though in our own private lives we might have our, you know, own political views. And so we are welcoming and, in fact, deliberately reaching out to do our Ubuntu with people from all different perspectives.
Yeah.
Group, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so anyone else like to add anything to this? Kirsten? Kirsten?
Thank you, Lyn. I guess this sort of ties in a bit with Susan's comment that that here in the ACT there seems to be a lot of energy and a lot of women who really would like to do something a bit more hands-on than sort of writing letters, and yet you know we have our Labor local government, we have our Labor and our Green senator, you know, we have 100% renewable energy so-called in the ACT, so it sort of seems as if the energy might be better placed outside, and so I wonder if anybody has ideas about that.
Kirsten, can you explain what you mean by the energy outside? Outside.
I'm sorry. That the tipping points that need, you know, the points that need pressure, the conversations with the unconverted are more usefully had outside of the ACT. Now, I might be being arrogant here, but that seems to me to be the situation.
Mm-hmm. Barbara Bakey.
Yeah, just to support what Kirsten and Susan were saying also too, that and also you too, Lyn, we do need numbers right across Australia, because I think if we have a predominance of members in the ACT, it is very easy for people outside Canberra to dismiss that as the Canberra bubble, and you know, we think we're special or whatever derogatory approach. But I think, you know, the getting the numbers, and I think that's why it's so important, and I guess for everyone, if we can think of, you know, people we have in different areas and engage with them, different organisations. The other one I thought about was the CWA too, which I need to follow those connections up as well. But just that, you know, the numbers, so we can say we've got people in every electorate, and it takes time, but you know, we've come a long way so fast. And by the end of the year, it would be wonderful. You know, it would be a goal. By the end of the year, we have people everywhere. So yeah, so that's it.
Thanks. I just want to give an opportunity to anyone who hasn't spoken yet and who would really love to have their say just before we close off. Is there anyone? Susan Banks, yeah.
I just wanted to say that I've been listening this morning, and I am thinking about local things, and thank you very much. That's all I want to say.
Okay. And where are you, Susan?
Canberra.
Canberra. Yeah, great. Okay. Anyone else? Remember that you can put a comment or information in the chat, and you can always contact us afterwards. But I might just hand back briefly to Janet to close us off.
Well, I think we've had a lot to think about this morning, as usually happens with these sort of conversations. It's great to hear everybody, and yeah, certainly some good thoughts are bubbling up there, and which we can take away.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for those comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Janet. I think one of the things that came to me is really our need for outreach to people like Susan and others who are kind of out there and doing it sometimes on their own. And if we can help, we'd really love to do that. On that basis too, we actually need help as well. We're a very small group, and in fact things have gone faster and sort of bigger than we anticipated, and we really do need sort of hands-on help. So if you're interested in working with us in almost any capacity, we'd love to hear from you. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet with you today. I think we probably should have allowed an hour and a half, Janet, so we could have had a bit more talk, and maybe we'll think about that for next time. But thank you so much. Please stay in touch and feel free to contact us at any time. You know, we want to support the work that you do, and we hope that you will be interested to keep in touch with us. We're going to close with a song again. I want to thank Johanna for her technical support and her advice and her musical direction. And we'll close with a song. You're welcome to stay till the end of the song, and we look forward to staying in touch with you. Thanks so much.
While Johanna's putting the song on, I might just say that this is a Chorus of Women's first outing since we were allowed out to sort of sing, and we sang down by the lake the other day, suitably socially distanced. And this little round is a little bit, the words when you see come up on the screen are quite a theme for WCC, so we thought you'd like to hear it as we check out today. Thanks.
Thanks, Janet. Bye.